Greetings to you, Crocodile Army. There's been a lot of talk about Confederate statues these days. I was out of the country for most of the month of August, so I got to read about what was happening at home from a distance, while Nazis marched holding tiki torches of all things. As John Oliver so eloquently put it, nothing says white nationalism quite like faux Polynesian kitsch. As ridiculous as those people are, one of them killed a woman and injured many more by running them over with his car. Trump was served up the softest of softballs that he could have hit out of the park by just saying white supremacists and Nazis really suck. Hell, the way he's going, it could have counted as the crowning achievement of his presidency so far. But no, just like his failure to condemn David Duke during the campaign, he whiffed at the opportunity and blamed both sides. Oh, and white supremacists heard that dog whistle loud and clear. They were crowing about it for days on their websites. Those who loved Trump were quick to point out that there were counter-protesters there, and that some of them were also engaged in violence. There are still a fair number of Americans around who remember a time when if Nazis were on the march, it was time for violence. They're called World War II veterans. Now, I'm not advocating for anyone to go out there and punch random Nazis, but that's mostly because if you have activism in your belly, we need you to be not in jail. They're unlikely to listen to arguments, but the alt-right will feel less empowered with a large counter-protest. So if you can get to those rallies, do it. Just remember that Nazis and their alt-right sympathizers are more than happy to get examples of violence from counter-protesters, so don't give them any more rhetorical ammunition if you can help it. They already scream about Antifa all the time and conveniently forget that the Nazis called the protest, not the counter-protesters, and certainly not Antifa. As if Nazis being concerned about violence isn't already hilariously ironic. The protest in Charlottesville was about a Confederate statue. There are by most counts more than 1,500 Confederate statues or memorials on public land around the country. That dwarfs the estimated few hundred Union statues and memorials on public land. This is not by accident. There's been a huge effort over the decades to rehabilitate the Confederate image, often referred to as the lost cause narrative. Societies are dedicated to these efforts, like Sons of Confederate Veterans, whose homepage laughably states, "The preservation of liberty and freedom was the motivating factor in the South's decision to fight the Second American Revolution." The United Daughters of the Confederacy's website states that one of their main goals is to collect and preserve the material for a truthful history of the war between the states. Anyone can read between those lines. Those two organizations have been some of the most active in convincing municipalities to honor the Confederate cause. And there are even Confederate memorials in other countries, including Brazil, where slavery was still legal in 1865 and they were farming cotton. Guess what country many Confederates fled to after the war? They say that the victors write the history, but the losers are trying really hard to rewrite it. Unfortunately for the losers, the Civil War was recent enough that the slavery-supporting writings of Jefferson Davis, Confederate generals, and others make it rather clear who was and still is on the wrong side of that war. I also have no respect for the "we don't want to erase history" argument, which is even more idiotic than all of the "but there were racists in the North too" arguments. Nobody's going to forget the Civil War because statues are taken down. And besides, statues are to honor causes worth honoring. If someone thinks a statue should stay up, either they think that the goals of those being honored were truly worthy, or they think the Confederacy should be the one horrible cause that we should have monuments to. Either way, it's bizarre that anyone is okay with exalting slavery backers in a country full of slave descendants. These statues are not priceless artifacts by a long shot. These are mostly 20th century monuments constructed to make people feel better about their ancestry, at best. We've ignored it for so long that many Southerners now believe the lost cause narrative. I'd left some writings of Confederates in the info bar to remind you who they were. After all, I wouldn't want their history to be forgotten.